This is getting out of control inside the Dodgers clubhouse, because when a room full of professional baseball players, guys who have faced Cy Young winners, MVPs, postseason pressure, and decades of baseball history start casually laughing and asking, "Is he Ruth?" about Shohei Ohtani, it means something has crossed a line from normal greatness into something they can't comfortably categorize anymore. And the strange part is that nobody is saying it with tension or concern. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. It's a joke that keeps repeating itself every time Ohtani does something that looks too effortless to be real. A home run that leaves the bat differently. A pitching performance where hitters look late on everything. A day where he changes the rhythm of the game without appearing to break a sweat. And every time it happens, someone in the clubhouse smiles, shakes their head, and says it again. At first, it was just a one-time comment. A reaction after a big game. Someone joking in disbelief after Ohtani hit a ball that seemed gone the moment it left the bat. The kind of moment where teammates don't even fully process it, they just react emotionally. Is he Babe Ruth or something? It got a laugh. A natural clubhouse laugh, the kind that resets tension after something unbelievable. But what made it different is that the moment didn't stay isolated. Because the next day, Ohtani did something else that felt equally impossible. And the joke came back. And then again after that. And slowly, without anyone planning it, a pattern formed inside the Dodgers locker room. Inside that room, there is no shortage of talent or experience. These are players who understand how hard this sport is. They know what slumps feel like, what adjustments take, what pressure does over a long season. So when they start reacting this way, it doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from recognition. Recognition that what they are seeing doesn't fit neatly into the normal categories of baseball performance. Because Ohtani is not just excelling in one role. He is shaping games in multiple ways, sometimes in the same night, sometimes within the same stretch of innings, and doing it with a consistency that removes randomness from the conversation. The phrase, "Is he Ruth?" keeps appearing because it's the only historical reference point that even remotely approaches the idea of a two-way superstar at this level. But even as it is said, there's an unspoken understanding in the room that the comparison is not exact. It's not analytical. It's emotional shorthand. A way of saying, we don't know how else to describe this. Because what Ohtani is doing doesn't feel like something that fits neatly into modern baseball roles. It feels like role separation itself becomes irrelevant when he steps on the field. What makes it even more noticeable inside the clubhouse is Ohtani's reaction to all of it, or more accurately, his lack of reaction. He doesn't lean into the comparison. He doesn't amplify it. He doesn't turn it into a storyline or a persona. He simply continues his routine as if the outside noise exists in a different layer of reality. He hits, he pitches, he prepares, he recovers, and he repeats. There is no visible emotional shift whether he has just delivered a dominant performance or whether the team is discussing him in historical terms. That stability creates a strange contrast, because while the clubhouse is processing awe through humor, he is processing everything through repetition. Teoscar Hernandez and other teammates have reportedly found themselves laughing more often than not when Ohtani does something extraordinary, not because it feels like a joke, but because laughter is the easiest way to release the disbelief. In professional sports, where everything is analyzed and broken down into measurable outcomes, there is still a human reaction when something doesn't fit analysis cleanly. And Ohtani produces those moments frequently enough that they have become part of the clubhouse rhythm. A big swing. A dominant outing. A quiet return to the dugout. And then someone, almost automatically now, says it again. Is he Ruth? What makes the joke stick is not just what Ohtani does on the field, but the way it blends into everything around it. There is no separation between preparation and performance in how he is perceived. Teammates see him working in the cage with the same focus he brings to the mound. They see how structured his routine is, how deliberate every phase of his training is, and how little emotional variance he shows regardless of outcome. That combination of extreme output and controlled demeanor creates something difficult to interpret in normal baseball language. Most stars announce themselves emotionally. Ohtani does not. He just continues. And because of that, the clubhouse starts to develop its own way of dealing with it. Humor becomes the bridge between understanding and disbelief. The Babe Ruth reference is not a conclusion, it's a coping mechanism for language. It is the closest available historical anchor, even if everyone knows the sport has changed so much that the comparison can only go so far. Still, it keeps coming back, because there is no better shortcut for describing a player who impacts the game in two fundamentally different ways at an elite level without showing signs of compromise in either. The Dodgers coaching staff views it through a different lens. They see structure, workload management, efficiency, and planning. They see how carefully everything is built to sustain performance across both roles. But even from that analytical perspective, the effect Ohtani has on the room is impossible to ignore. When he is in the lineup, the opposing team adjusts differently. When he is pitching, the entire tone of the game shifts. When he does both in the same stretch of games, it forces everyone around him to recalibrate expectations in real time. And yet, inside the clubhouse, the most interesting part is how quickly something extraordinary becomes normal when it happens often enough. The first time Ohtani does something remarkable, it creates shock. The second time, admiration. The third time, expectation. And after that, it starts to become part of routine conversation. Not because it loses value, but because the human mind adapts to repetition. That adaptation is where the jokes live. Is he Ruth? Becomes less of a comparison and more of a reflex, something said after moments that would otherwise require a much longer explanation. There are moments when the laughter fades slightly longer than usual after those comments. Moments when teammates don't immediately move on to the next topic. Because underneath the humor, there is awareness. Awareness that they are watching something that does not appear frequently in any era of baseball. A player who does not just excel in a role, but occupies multiple roles at a level that forces the sport to constantly adjust how it defines excellence. And through all of it, Ohtani remains unchanged in how he carries himself. No emphasis on legacy. No visible reaction to comparisons. No attempt to shape the narrative forming around him. He continues to work, continues to prepare, continues to perform in a way that suggests his focus is always slightly ahead of the conversation happening about him. If the clubhouse is talking about what he just did, he is already thinking about what comes next. That contrast is what keeps the conversation alive. Because while teammates joke about Babe Ruth, they are also witnessing something that doesn't feel fully contained by any single historical reference. The laughter is real, but so is the recognition underneath it. The humor is light, but the awareness is serious. And somewhere between those two reactions, the truth sits quietly in the middle. Shohei Ohtani is not just part of the Dodgers clubhouse conversation. He is shaping it. And as long as he continues performing at this level, the same question will keep returning, half joke and half reflection, echoing through a room full of players who understand the game better than most. Is he Ruth? And every time it is said, even with a smile, it carries just a little more weight than the last.